Hello, and welcome back to the Geek on My Sleeve channel. This is Geek Out 127 over Biomancer Book 2 by Shemer Kuznits. Here at Geek on My Sleeve, we learn how to human one book at a time. And this one is not so much how to human, but it's more how to human inside societal constraints using fiber technology inserted into a game world. Yeah, it all makes sense. If you know, you know.
Yeah, I would say that is well said. Well said. Um, Pretty much, we Life Reset was one of the first series we covered, and will always be near and dear to my heart. Um, this series pretty much is about what we learn. Ex soldier who we later find out has like psychopathic tendencies, who's on a mission to save his brother who was in Neo. And I think thinking back to it, we actually got to see this character a couple times, right? Like when the gnome was chasing him, um, when everything first went to the couple thousand players being trapped inside Neo. It's a short scene, but I'm pretty sure we got to see his brother. Um,
Inside of Life Reset.
yeah, yeah. So the challenge with these offshoot series, with rare exceptions, they're they never quite live up to the main series that you fall in love with. And um, I think we were talking about it before or last week, where like while listening to it, it wasn't quite hitting as hard as we wanted it to, but then the conclusion kind of knocked it up a couple rings, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is like the first or the main series vibed with me very well, where those are the kind of books that I enjoy, and it hit on a lot of, I guess, similarities for the lit RPG, but then it did it uniquely better in a lot of cases,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't a clone, so to speak. There was the playing as a monster race, and then
Right.
there was the I I'd say little bits of stuff from the other series is probably fair game, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was about to say, for those who don't know, spoilers ahead on book 1 and 2 of Biomancer. And as a rule, typically any book we've covered previously is fair game, but definitely Life Reset, the first series,
Okay,
is
but
fair game for
yeah,
this. Spoilers
the
ahead.
in Life Reset you had playing as a monster race, then you had the typical isekai lit RPG trapped in another world, so to speak. But then we got
Mm-hmm.
out, and then it had it touched a little bit on like technology advances, and then
Right.
anyway. So the first series really was amazing, and then the way the first series ended, I had a different vision or thought process of what was potentially going to be his next series, and this wasn't exactly it. I think it does very well for what it is, but I'm probably not the exact target audience. Um, for example, in the Biomancer series, we finally got the technology that was developed inside the original series where they put, I forget the verbiage or the name of it, they put the chip up the nasal cavity and essentially connect it to your brain.
Right.
And we get one tiny little scene after it's installed in book one where he is in prison and has a guy, hunched over him trying to intimidate him, and it gives like a HUD or heads up display, description of his, strength and whatever, and then it gives him the advantage or the information that it reduces his flexibility due to his muscles, and That was like one little snippet, and then the end of two, it activates the whole thing and brings it full circle. But we have several instances where we're outside of the game that I would have liked to see the HUD or more of the ABT or whatever information, like when we meet the doctor or when we're looking at the guards or some of the other instances. Like
Mm-hmm.
it seems more so relating our stories for the military type and more of the
Mm-hmm.
military mindset, which I've never served, and in our family we don't have a whole lot or any that I know of who have, so it's not really something that, you know, I have respect for the field, but it's not a part of my life.
Yeah.
So it doesn't
Yeah.
hit as close to home.
This book does do a good job making it noob friendly, though, because the
Yeah.
main character is not a gamer, so we kind of get eased into things by not being gamers.
And I guess that's another thing with Shemer Kuznits. He does a lot better about like resource managing, and so we get to see like dealing with the biomasses and building up our different conclaves and the
Mm-hmm.
fast travel, movement manipulation thing, and that was a big aspect of Life Reset, but it also had a lot more, I guess, six books versus two, a
Mm-hmm.
lot more development of abilities and doing other stuff. But for Biomancer 2, it so we spent all of one building up the town and saving it and then betraying the Druidess that we came to enjoy. Um and so like this was kind of a redemption book for her where we end up getting her back, but we
Right.
didn't spend a whole lot of time in the city that we knew to grow and love. Um,
Yeah, I remember us talking a bit about that. Like here we have all this investment in relationships, and then even our goblin druid, we I guess that's not true. We see him a handful of times. We have a couple
w-
scenes with him,
we get
but
him in the beginning, and then he is pretty clutch towards the end.
yeah,
But that fit into the plot or the storyline where it was like, okay, it's due to all the druids summoning them back because they need to be protected because they have less elders for the grand
right,
ritual to
right,
stop the darkness, blah blah blah. Like that all fit nicely for me, but I don't know.
yeah. We do get a bit of a teaser about Orin from the main series when our VI
That
for
is the
this one,
quote I wish I freaking grabbed.
yeah, when
It's
he's
like, oh
trying
yeah,
to
there
like
was another meat suit who thought, or it was something about, oh, his VI handler is essentially like, hey, so let me figure this out here, or verbally process, or whatever. So you thought it would be a good idea to get sacrificed on an altar and that nothing would happen. He basically blows it off where he's like, yeah, I'm a player, nothing bad's going to happen. And he's like, oh, so you
hmm
currently hold a degree in neurotech science, blah, blah, blah.
hmm
And he's like, well, no, but and then he references Oren, where he's like, "Yeah, there's another guy who thought it would be a good idea to do this, and all this bad
hmm
stuff." And then it was like,
hmm
"Oh, so what happened to him?" Well, he's actually living happily ever after with his family, experiencing new worlds, blah 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 blah. So it's kind of like,
Yeah, yeah.
I
Like, wait,
yeah, I really wanted to grab
where was the
that because
fallout? It's
this,
like, what was I supposed to be worried about? Being
yeah,
able to go
yeah,
and explore
exactly.
new like the punchline isn't making sense. So yeah, yeah, not quite as fun as Vic. And I guess we really don't get to see the VI handler too often.
No, but that's where I felt like this book did well in a different aspect. And what I mean by that is like Life Reset. went pretty hard on kind of oh, I'm drawing a blank on the movie. Was it Keanu Reeves and slow motion dodging bullets?
Matrix.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Matrix where everybody's afraid of being trapped and it's all simulation. And Life Reset went kind of hard on that, where then they had technological advances and time dilation, and then we end up, you know, dying and living and blah. But then come to this one, it's more about helping chemical balances, because in book one, the first series, the game ends up kind of like sending source code or whatever to make him act like a goblin, and
Mm-hmm.
he ends up inheriting some of those traits, because even though he can't directly receive the information or decipher it as he receives it, it's still being pushed on him, and it's kind of like entering his subconscious, where this is taking the opposite rehabilitation helpful approach, and it's more along the lines of like,
Yes.
hey, due to a traumatic incident when you were younger, which develops a lot of us and creates who we are today, whatever, um, you have a tendency to, you know, make sure you aren't going to fall into this situation again. And
Mm-hmm.
due to that, you have a lack of empathy and blah. So it's more of a helping fix different tendencies. And
Mm-hmm.
that is something that in today's medical field is not relevant. It's all pharmaceuticals. So I am a big fan of learning through books where you can separate yourself from the situation and see it as a third party and kind of address it that way, which makes a lot of sense to me. The current meta is pharmaceuticals. And then the reality of this book is to develop situations that will help critique or help you go through a situation that you can view it in a different way to kind of alter or change your mindset.
Right.
And it's encouraging and is kind of a redemption factor for the virtual world or virtual spaces.
Mm-hmm. That's something that I can't celebrate this book enough for. Is too often, and maybe this is just U.S. media that portrays the video games as the problem or the demon or the reason why kids or
It's
young people are
generational
doing.
barriers, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's a trope that we've talked about before that we like, is just how much this technology could benefit people medically. So to kind of get to see some of that, not just overall character development, but like the actual progression of learning through the virtual space and kind of being treated to where early on in book one, it's all just mission at all costs, mission at all costs, right? Like he's thinking about slaying the people to achieve his objective, and then he builds these bonds, and gets to the point where he's making the quote unquote right choices while still trying to achieve his mission. Um, in a lot of ways, like science fiction has influenced technology. This is one of those aspects where I hope like other researchers and individuals will see tropes like this and be like, hey, this is worth investing in. This is worth getting to. That way we can have our own Sword Art Online trapped in the virtual reality world. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and then I felt like some of it was a little heavy-handed, because I guess it's probably more the military mindset and the old school military stuff where, oh, it's oh, I can't think of the word. It's segregated male female thing
Mm-hmm.
where it's primarily a male division for deployment or whatever. And I know a lot has changed since. And yet again, I'm not active, so or involved. But for this, they have the Furling,
Yes,
where
yes.
they're all
Our
female and their whole uh, society structure is men are substandard and uh, irrelevant, can do menial labor, and are
pretty
breeding
much just
stock, which
yeah.
was supposed to put him on the back foot because he felt bad for slaying a female, one of them who he was, may or may not have had feelings for. Um, yeah, so just to, it seemed a little heavy-handed, where it was like, okay, I guess I can understand that it can be a trope, and then we end up recruiting a male, and he's a bard, and he develops his different ability sets, which I felt like I really kind of wanted to see more like bard action, but
Mhm.
that was another one of those like weird. He kept trying to force his agenda on things, and he was tired of losing people, so he was going to make him a priest and more or less created another psychopath, kind of, sort of.
Yeah, what did you think about that? Like, I know the VI's job was to kind of help guide him down that path to where he could see, um, I don't know, like it made sense for the plot, um, and I guess like I agree with it. The fact that for the study, totally makes sense, but I guess like when we got there, it was like super heavy handed on their agenda. Where I guess in the beginning they were kind of hiding it, where towards the end they weren't even hiding that, hey, we're going to flaunt your psychopathic tendencies or what used to be through the storyline to kind of help your recovery, right? As he's having the monsters fight each other, sort of a deal, and um, our main character is like, hey, that's not cool.
Or yeah, yeah. But that I felt like was brushed over because it was a game mechanic, and it was, yes, fit into society, correct your tendencies, but then understand the mechanics of the environment you're in. But yeah, I don't know.
We did finally get some party dynamics, which was fun, but seemed somewhat short lived, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was short lived, and yet again, like the ending really brought it all together for me, where I yeah, I'm excited to see what is going to happen going forward, because of my understanding, this instance that we're in only contained him and is essentially no longer valid, because we now have his brother into it or able to access Neo. We now have the exploit that was supposed to just get his brother is now or has been sold to other military or governmental entities. So we're going to have a lot of people against us, so to speak, who are going to be working on things and developing them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Guy is very much, probably off doing bigger and better things, so won't be a huge impact. I could see the VIs being implemented or elements, and them kind of like taking it fairly casual. Like you said, they've lived eons, and becoming the master of the universe has already gotten old by the time we get to them.
Right, right.
So for them to also be a factor, but I would think it would fall into a different world or different scenario similar to the older Neo, because our current instance is just for him. So I'm excited to see where it goes from here.
Mm. Yeah, I guess that's something I didn't quite truly appreciate at the end there. Is he's been in his own instance, and now they need him to go and fight and defend the greater Neo, right?
Yep, yep. So I would be a little disappointed if he got like a full wipe, though I also wouldn't be disappointed because I would love to see the
Mm,
dynamic party synergy with his brother.
yeah, they
Um,
talked about the fact that he had a head start just for levels,
okay, okay, I guess
and
that makes sense for
his
porting.
brother then is going to be a superpower because his brother
Mm,
is one of the people in
possibly,
there, and his brother
possibly
is twice the
because
level.
when oh, I can't remember the acronym, Shiva took over, um, they reset everybody.
Yeah, but he pointed out that he was a lowly level and that he was twice his level in the
Oh,
end.
okay, yeah, I guess that's true.
So I don't know about you, but there was a part of me that even wondered if we would even get to see his brother at the end of book two. Like we were like three
Well,
fourths of the
that's
way
where I
through,
kind
and
of
I'm
feel
like,
like it
are
was
we
a
even going to
plot
get there?
hole and it wasn't super relevant because in book one, when we visit his brother in the hospital, he's not hooked up to any gear. And they tried to recreate the simulation, but because he wasn't forthcoming with his environment or what happened, they stopped doing it. Plus, they directly didn't have access to it. So I would and wouldn't expect him to still be plugged in, but
Yeah, that was something I was wondering. But it's probably answered with like the HUD implants or whatever that the technology that came out afterwards, because all the people who are trapped in Neo are filthy rich,
well,
right?
but I thought that was more of like AR versus the deep dive modules that Orin was in was like a full encompassing capsule. And then the
Right.
one he's currently, our main guy, Biomancer, is currently in is just a helmet where you lay down. I don't know. It's semantics. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
glad he got there. Glad they had their reunion. Um, but definitely, people have their anchors in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, the ending brought it home for me where it was like been working so hard to get to this, but it's not actually what we thought it was, and we're
Yep.
actually, unleashing the evil, which it's like, oh no, but then we destroy the evil, so it's like, oh yeah. And then
It.
it's the VI coming through and giving us access to it. And
Mm-hmm.
then the message from our tech head who helped us for achieving our objective, but also cashed out and sold it to other superpowers. And then I'm just excited to see the additional technological advances because we got
Mm-hmm.
the ABT or whatever chip where we can get the HUD and we can do all this other different stuff. But I'm just always excited to see more potential cool tech.
We know you're a sucker for tech, toys, and combat.
Yeah.
Authors, if you want to win Peter over, give him combat and tech toys and puns.
Yep.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. It was a fun read, listen. Um, just, yeah, not life reset. And I've tried to get a lot better about checking my expectations going into books, which is hard when you already have like such a love for the author and other series that they do. Um,
Or you were
I'm
kind of breaking out for me there. Could be on my end. I have a bajillion tabs open, but
no, let me flip off my AC in the background.
yeah, I couldn't understand any of that. But I've also been having connection issues with other things, and I probably should have reset my router beforehand.
How about now? Better? Mic check, mic check.
I hear your mic opening. Hopefully, it's just for us. I was a guy who clicked start, so I don't know if I can leave and pop back.
Here, let me check on my end.
You ever hear of Charlie Brown when they're talking on the phone? Yeah, that's what you are.
I switched over. Can you hear me now? Hello, hello.
Yeah, you're a bunch of want. I'm gonna hit refresh on browser. Fingers crossed.
Okay. Appreciate you guys bearing with us as Pete refreshes things on his end. Might turn out to be a little bit shorter stream today if we continue to have technical difficulties. Appreciate you guys being patient with us as we ramp back up and get into our schedule. How about now, Pete?
You're still Charlie Brown in that.
Well, ladies and gents, as always, never enough time to get through the whole stream to cover the whole book. Due to technical difficulties, we'll probably just wrap this one up relatively sooner than later. We're going to stick with the Sunday 5 or 4 p.m. Eastern time. As you can see on our YouTube channel, we got the next couple up. Next week, Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern, we are doing He Who Fights with Monsters number 6, which is going to be a lot of fun. I enjoyed listening to it. And then the following week, the 24th, again at 4 p.m. Eastern, we are going to do book 10 of Artorian's Archive Archaeology. Butchering that as best as possible. Yeah. Solid book.
Coming through all right now.
Yeah. Well, with the way technical difficulties have been, I let the stream know that we were going to wrap things up. Yep, there's our little slides for it. He Who Fights with Monsters 6. Loving the series. This one was a bit shorter of a book, but still a lot of fun. Kind of felt like a little bit of a filler arc to me. How about you, Pete?
Character growth and development, but that doesn't involve blowing people up. So
fair enough.
It was a shorter book. It weirdly enough, it was probably one of his ones that ended better than the rest. And I say that with love, where book 1 kind of was like felt it was in the middle of a scene and not super relevant, but this one wrapped up nicely, but also a lot of the aspects that we developed over the 5th book weren't utilized or relevant. With that being said, it was a very character development book.
Yeah. I agree with that. And then, following week, finally getting back to Artorian Archives. Enjoying spending time in the Divine Dungeon extended universe. Finally getting closer and closer to the Completionist Chronicles. As far as where Artorian Archives is with the timeline. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I haven't been through this one yet, but again, great series.
Love the series. Absolutely loving the series, and just that whole community is a blast to hang out with.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, once again, thanks for hanging out with us. Even though we've been running into some technical difficulties, we will be back next Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And yeah, what I miss, Pete.
Yeah, felt like, yeah, need to figure out stuff, but for this, yeah, we're just gonna keep on moving along. So thank you for joining us, and hope to geek out with you here soon.
Bye.
Bye.